In 1962, 3 discount stores opened within 7 months of each other. Same year, same idea, same customer. One became the largest retailer on earth. One became the second largest. The third had a 60-year head start on both of them and lost everything. So how does a company go from 1% of the entire US economy to 5 stores? That's what we're going to talk about today. So here's the thing most people get wrong about this story. They say Amazon killed Kmart and Sears. And look, I get it. It's the easy answer, but it's almost entirely wrong. By the time Amazon was actually big enough to matter in retail, we're talking mid-2000s, Kmart had already filed for bankruptcy. Sears had already been passed by Walmart. The catalog was already dead. Amazon didn't do any of that. So what did? 2 things. First, Walmart and Target out-executed them for about 20 years straight. And then, when they finally had a shot at rebuilding, their own management stripped the whole thing down for parts. Let's get into it. To understand what happened, you have to start with what Sears actually was. Not what it became, what it was. In 1886, a guy named Richard Sears started selling watches by mail out of Minnesota. By the 1890s, he's selling everything. Tools, clothing, furniture, ready-to-build houses. You could literally order a house from the Sears catalog. It will show up in pieces on a railroad car. Sears was the everything store, like Amazon 100 years early. By 1969, peak Sears, the company accounted for roughly 1% of the entire U.S. economy. Fortune reported that roughly 2/3 of Americans shop there in any given quarter, larger than the next 4 retailers combined. That's not a big company, that's an institution. And then 1962 happened. March 1st, the first Kmart opens, Garden City, Michigan, spun out of an old dime store chain called Kresge. Discount prices, suburban locations, moving fast. May 3rd, Target opens. July 9th, Walmart opens. Rogers, Arkansas. 3 companies, 7 months, 1 year. Now, Sears didn't panic. Why would they? They were the largest retailers in the company. They'd been around since before the automobile. They had the brands, the real estate, the catalog, the trust. But Walmart was building something Sears wasn't even paying attention to. While Sears was focused on protecting what it already had, Walmart was building the back end of a completely different kind of retail operation. Regional distribution centers. Inventory systems that track what was selling in every store in real time. By 1988, they had the largest private satellite communication network in the country. Kmart actually installed scanners at their registers in 1985. They just didn't use the data. By 1999, Walmart was doing $167 billion in revenue. Kmart was at $36 billion. The gap was that wide, and it had basically nothing to do with the internet. The result? In 1989, Walmart passed Sears as the largest retailer in the United States. Amazon was 5 years away from even being founded. Meanwhile, Sears is doing something interesting with the pressure. Instead of fixing retail, they decide to diversify out of it. They buy Dean Witter, a brokerage firm, for $600 million in 1981. They created the Discover card in 1985, and they already owned Allstate Insurance. The idea was something called the Sears Financial Network, one-stop shopping for your whole financial life. It didn't work, and while they were figuring that out, Walmart kept building. Okay, so here's the part of the story that kind of gets me every time. January 25th, 1993, Sears kills the Big Book catalog. The original remote shopping machine, the thing that literally built the company. $3.3 billion in sales the year before, but $175 million in losses because the fulfillment operation was broken and nobody had fixed it. So they shut it down. 113 stores closed, 50,000 people lost their jobs. And 12 months later, in 1994, Jeff Bezos founds Amazon. Like, Sears had the brand. They had 100 years of people trusting them to deliver products through the mail. They had the footprint. The problem wasn't the catalog, it was the back end, which is exactly what Amazon spent the next decade building from scratch. They quit 12 months too early. So while all of that's happening with Sears, Kmart is going through its own thing. They peaked in 1994, 2,400 stores, around 350,000 employees. But they're completely stuck. Too expensive to beat Walmart on price. Not enough to beat Target on experience. Walmart's taking their customers on the low end, Target's taking them on the high end, and there's just no lane left for Kmart. They never found a way out of it. January 22nd, 2002, Kmart files Chapter 11. 2,114 stores. The largest retail bankruptcy in U.S. history at the time. Amazon was barely profitable. No physical stores, had almost nothing to do with this. So now we get to the part that should have been a comeback story. A hedge fund manager named Eddie Lampert had been quietly buying up Kmart's debt while it was in bankruptcy. When Kmart came out on the other side, he controlled it. And then in March 2005, he merges Kmart and Sears into one company. $11.5 billion deal. Overnight. Third largest retailer in the United States. His pitch was pretty simple. Kmart had the locations, Sears had the brands. On paper, that sounds like something. What happened next was something else entirely, though. Lampert had a theory about how companies should work. His idea? If you force internal divisions to compete against each other for capital, the same way companies compete in an open market, they'll make better decisions. The strongest units survive, the whole company gets sharper. So in 2008, he breaks Sears Holdings into more than 30 autonomous units, apparel, tools, appliances, HR, IT, branding. Each one gets its own president, its own board, its own profit and loss statement. Every year, the heads of these divisions fly in and pitch Lampert directly for capital. And what did the divisions actually do? They stopped cooperating with each other, hired their own separate staff, marketed against each other, refused to share information. One former executive described the culture as warring tribes. Bloomberg Businessweek reporter Mina interviewed more than 40 former executives for a 2013 piece on this. And what they described was a company that had basically stopped functioning as a company. The theory was that competition inside the walls would make everything sharper. What it actually did was make them all smaller. And while all of this is going on inside the company, the money is going someplace else. Between 2005 and 2011, Sears Holdings spent more than $5 billion buying back its own stock. $5 billion. Didn't go to the renovation of stores, didn't go to building a competitive website, didn't go to fixing anything. It went to shareholders. Then in 2015, Lampert sells 235 of Sears Holdings' best store locations, the most valuable real estate they had, to a REIT called Seritage Growth Properties, $2.7 billion. Here's the thing about that deal. Lampert was Seritage's chairman. His own fund held nearly 44% of the LP. He was on both sides of the transaction. Shareholders later sued, and they settled for $40 million. Then in January 2017, Craftsman, one of Sears' most trusted brands, the one in basically every garage in America, sold to Stanley Black & Decker $900 million. The proceeds went to pay down debt, including debt owed to Lampert's own fund. So, the stores aren't being fixed. The best real estate is gone. The brands are being sold off. The math only worked in one direction. Around 700 stores left. Revenue of $16.7 billion, down from more than $50 billion just 10 years earlier. Cumulative losses over that decade, more than $11 billion. Lampert actually bought it back out of bankruptcy in 2019 through his fund to keep something running. Today, there are 5 Sears stores left in the United States. Braintree, Massachusetts, Concord, California, El Paso, Texas, Orlando, Florida, Coral Gables, Florida. Kmart has no full-size stores left on the U.S. mainland. The last one closed in 2024. That's the company that was 1% of the U.S. economy in 1969. 5 stores. So, was it Amazon? Nope. Walmart passed Sears in 1989. Kmart went bankrupt in 2002. Sears killed its own catalog in 1993, a whole year before Amazon even existed. By the time Amazon was actually disrupting retail, these companies were already hollowed out. Walmart beat Kmart on execution, built the systems, won on price and logistics. It wasn't even close. And Sears? Sears beat itself. It had everything it needed to beat Amazon. The catalog, the brand trust, the reach, 100-year head start. And instead of reinvesting in any of that, leadership diversified into financial services, split the company into warring divisions, sold the best real estate, sold the best brands, and bought back more than $5 billion in stock while the other stores fell apart around them. Same industry, same era, completely opposite choices. So last video, we looked at a company that kept its hot dog at $1.50 for 40 years. That was one answer to the question of what a retailer is actually for. Kmart and Sears gave a different answer, and you just watched how that played out. If you want to see how Costco made the opposite call, that one's already up. The link's below. And if this one made you think, subscribe. We did the reading, so you don't have to.